We all have our own origin story, anchored in a seemingly insignificant moment of our past that influences the rest of our lives. And it's only years later, with the benefit of hindsight, that we can finally pinpoint that exact moment that would help shape us into the people we're meant to become. For me, it was reading these 7 simple words. It's dangerous to go alone, take this. And so 40 years ago began The Legend of Zelda, and for me, a lifetime of adventure. We all have our pieces of childhood nostalgia that stick with us longer than we expected. Sailor Moon, for example, made my wife feel like she could be a strong, powerful woman. For others, it might be, I don't know, the tale of a young hobbit tasked with journeying across a fantastical, dangerous world to destroy the One Ring in Lord of the Rings. For me, it's Zelda. If you're new here, my name is Joe Bauer. I'm an American who's been living in and traveling around Europe for the past 10 years. And in this video, I'm celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda by sharing how the series taught me to break down the chains of the modern American life and seek out adventure wherever I can. And I'll share stories from some volunteers at Zelda Dungeon who were likewise inspired by the video game series to look for adventure wherever they can find it. Growing up in suburban America, I had to rely on video games like The Legend of Zelda to scratch my itch for exploration. The real adventure, the mountains, the forests, the trails, were always a car ride away. Even worse, the woods behind my house, which to me at the time were as wild and remote as the Lost Woods in my imagination, were mostly chopped down for a new cul-de-sac. It really wasn't until I moved to Germany and started traveling around Europe by foot, following my instincts and various clues to find the real treasures of life, that I finally experienced a taste of the kind of adventure that Zelda promises. Glacial lakes you can only reach by foot, towering mountain expanses, and mossy forests with caves carrying secrets. In these environments, I felt like Link running around the legendary kingdom of Hyrule, but admittedly more like side quest Link since, I wasn't slaying any mythical pig monsters. America taught me that exploration requires a car. Zelda, however, taught me that all I needed was a map and a bit of curiosity. And it wasn't until I left the United States that I learned Zelda was right. Zelda was created to inspire exploration. It's a well-known piece of the legend that series creator Shigeru Miyamoto was inspired by his childhood of exploring the countryside of Japan. It was that sense of wonder and discovery that he tried to capture for games like Zelda. Now, of course, I didn't know that as a kid dragging my 8-bit character around. I was just, having some fun stabbing some baddies. But subconsciously, the open world format of these games, allowing me to go wherever my heart desired, was turning me into something of an amateur adventurer. But just like in the game, I didn't yet have all the tools I needed to go where I truly wanted to go. I didn't even really know where I wanted to go. I couldn't just walk out my door and throw myself into an adventure. I needed a car and somebody to drive me, which in video game terms kind of feels like starting a new game at level 1 and needing a piece of equipment locked behind level 18 to do anything meaningful. And considering most Americans do live in car-oriented suburbs, I'm guessing I wasn't alone in getting my fix of adventure through places like the pixelated fields of Hyrule. But in my humble opinion, a car shouldn't be a requirement to explore and experience the wonder of our natural world. It should be as simple as it was for Link, waking up from a little 100-year snooze and nothing more than some jorts and heading out into the world.
Listen!
I'm hardly alone in this sentiment. Millions of players from around the world have found inspiration in Zelda's rich 2D and open world environments. YouTuber Little Gem, for example, built a real King of the Red Lions boat from the Wind Waker and sailed it. For more examples, I recently spoke with a few volunteers at Zelda Dungeon, a fan website dedicated to all things Zelda, to learn more about how the series inspired them to explore beyond their front door. Pennsylvania-based Katie Schaffer is a stained glass artist inspired by the art from the Zelda series itself. But Zelda also pushed her to go outside of her comfort zone and explore the outdoors.
Through a variety of reasons, I was pushed outside my comfort zone to take a vacation in the mountains. And I was like, boring. Who wants to go to the mountains? But when I went there, it reminded me so much of the Hebra Mountains. And it's funny because I don't necessarily love the snow or the cold, but it's just so quiet and serene and ethereal. That push outside my comfort zone when we got to the mountains, I felt the same way. It's quiet, it's beautiful, the chill in your lungs. It's just gorgeous.
Then there's Julie Burns, who developed a love of the outdoors at an early age, picking up rocks, looking at bugs, and trying to catch frogs, and Zelda pushed her to double down.
Falling in love with the Zelda series, it then had a recursive effect of redoubling my love for the outdoors. I think the Wild era really, really leans into that love of nature. But just like Link does in his Wild era, I'm a rock climber, and so I love, keeping my stamina wheel up, playing the game. You are getting the experience that, thankfully Miyamoto intended for us, to have this like joy of the outdoors. That is very, very much in the fabric, in the texture, in the code of these games. And I think in the same way that I've described of like, yes, I loved being outdoors as a kid and then dove into video games as a teenager, but now as an adult, I'm back into being into the outdoors. And that's totally been inspired by the Zelda series. It's totally been inspired by my love for exploration and to pushing my limits and being courageous. So I totally find that there's value in this series.
Thankfully, not every corner of the United States has been paved over for a parking lot. Sophia Murphy was lucky enough to grow up in a community with easy access to the outdoors. Zelda simply helped her to embrace it.
Zelda triggered that love for like being outside. I started enjoying like going out and doing hiking more and just going like on walks. I remember I wanted to learn how to ride horses because of Zelda. So it really cultivated my love of outdoors, and then being able to be in a space where I could actually go outdoors was really nice.
Unfortunately, far too many Americans grow up and live without easy access to the outdoors. According to The Guardian, years of patchy investment in public parks has left 100 million Americans, including 27 million children, without access to decent nearby green spaces. Studies show that accessibility of green space served as a strong predictor of reduced obesity rates among adults. And low-income communities of color have a disproportional lack of access to green spaces due to historically discriminatory policies, worsening those health disparities. Now, there are of course exceptions on both sides of the pond, but Europeans generally report higher access to green spaces than their American counterparts. The Nordics fare exceptionally well in this regard, with 80% of Stockholm residents having access to a public park a short walk away. And Europeans across the continent overwhelmingly said they have easy access to green spaces. Now the problem is, much of the way the United States has developed, particularly in suburban America, limits access to green space. For far too many, green space is a drive, not a walk or a short train ride away. And that's antithetical to exploration and adventure. I'd argue it's antithetical to American values, and it damn sure is antithetical to Zelda. In my last video, I talked about how the unfettered spread of suburban slop across our natural spaces has forced us into cars to accomplish even the most menial of tasks. In my experience, that's doubly true for accessing regional, state, and national parks. When everyone is forced to drive, people who don't want to own or can't afford a car don't have the opportunity to, throw on their imaginary tunic and head out into the woods. Even those who can drive might face parking issues at popular national parks because it's the only option. Visitors to Mount Rainier, for example, have reported waiting up to 2 hours during busy periods for a spot, which has, to be fair, prompted some calls for developing public transit access to the park. Having access to the Hyrule Fields, Haber Mountains, and Great Plateaus of our country shouldn't be a privilege reserved to those with a car and the extra gas money to fuel the trip. They should be accessible to everyone for the far lower cost of a train or bus ticket. This is my hot take. National parks should be for the nation. I went camping precisely twice before moving to Europe. Once in Cuyahoga Valley National Park while hiking the Buckeye Trail for my book, Best Hikes Near Cleveland, available at a Beetle near you. Oh! And the other time was for a 3-day hike in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Both times the trip would have been impossible without a car, which I didn't own and didn't want to own one. So it really wasn't until moving to Europe that I could finally let my inner Link shine. Not to brag, but I made so few friends during our first 3 years in Dusseldorf because we were spending almost every weekend on the trails of the local, regional, and national parks of Western Germany. The 150-mile Neanderlandsteig was just a 30-minute bus ride away, a fairly standard trail by German standards that takes you through the landscapes of our ancient Neanderthal brethren. And that was just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. The Rheinsteig, Eifelsteig, Boselsteig, and Neckarsteig were all trails we could easily access for the comparatively low cost of a train ticket. Even better, without the ball and chain of a car, we could easily explore further into places like Eiffel National Park and grab the train someplace else to finish the journey home. And it was during those weekend hikes that I started turning my shuffle into a run, unintentionally launching my future obsession with trail running and ultramarathons. Over the years since, I've pulled myself up the Rocky Mountain face of North Macedonia's Pelister Mountain, faced ninjas in Japan, rumbled across the roller coaster dunes of the Gerudo Valley, Oman, and survived the high desert plains of the Nepalese mountains. The spirit of adventure, joy, and discovery I feel when I'm on these excursions is what playing Zelda felt like as a kid. And it still feels like that when I'm in a desperate need of a quick hit of wonder during a gloomy Berlin afternoon. It's why I commemorated finishing my first ultramarathon with a tattoo of the Master Sword on my right arm. I wanted that constant, permanent reminder to embrace my inner child, step out the front door as often as possible, and set out on my own adventure. And it's even better when I'm chasing a princess. So much of American suburban life forced me inside and to seek comfort. Days were spent going from one climate-controlled environment to the next, more often than not by car, all the while completely disconnected from my natural surroundings. Cold? Blast the heater and remotely turn on the car to warm it up before getting in. Hot? Blast the AC until it feels like a completely different season. Zelda helped prepare me to embrace discomfort. After all, you can't defeat the Demon King without getting a few scratches, am I right? Oh man, I'm a nerd. It stoked my curiosity for adventure and the outdoors. Moving to Europe, where I can easily access state and national parks by foot, quenched that thirst for adventure that had been bubbling inside of me for as long as this series has been around. The US can and should do more to make the outdoors more accessible and encourage exploration. It's in our blood, and certainly our American mythology is rife with tales of heading out into the wilderness in search of adventure. In these polarized times, what could be more patriotic than giving Americans better access to, America? Until then, you can find me somewhere out in the Lost Woods or Satori Mountains, muddling around on my latest side quest. Next week, I'm raising my figurative Hylian shield in defense of the American people by tackling what Europeans get wrong about Americans, like that we're all gun-obsessed lunatics who don't have passports and couldn't care less about the rest of the world. We do care about the world. Sometimes we just, show it in the wrong way. But I promise you, most of us can't kidnap foreign leaders. We're too busy worrying if we've packed enough Imodium for our sensitive gringo tummies. By the way, our overwhelming car culture isn't just keeping us from adventure, it's killing us either outright or slowly. Watch this video for more on the dangers of American suburban slop.